Welcome back to Fire and Steel. What began as something relatively small has evolved. Quite a bit, actually. The pace is quickening, tensions are climbing, and I'm afraid our group isn't making it easy on themselves. Or each other. So, if you haven't already, settle in with something warm to sip on. Whether you're fully settled or listening along as you work, you're in good company. And as we continue, just remember, progress is still progress, even when it's accompanied by a steady stream of arguments.
After a long and uncomfortably silent trek back to Fort Atlas, Paladin Rahmani, Knight Shin, and Initiate Ophelia made their way through the red steel doors. Everyone inside was armed, and there were several lifeless bodies on the floor, super mutant and Initiate alike. When they found a very stressed-looking scribe Valdez who started spilling information as soon as she saw them.
Thank goodness you're here. I don't know how much longer we could hold out without you. Atlas is under attack. These big mutant people blew a hole right through the wall of the substructure and came pouring through.
A mutant attack now? Of all times? Unbelievable.
Scribe, status report. How many hostiles? Where are they now?
Knight Shin grimaced. Anger etched his face as he examined the mutant dead on the floor. Paladin Rahmani took a step forward with firm focus, her gaze on the scribe. The worry was written on Valdez's face, but she responded as calmly as she could.
Dozens of mutants. I couldn't get an accurate account. We fought them back into the substructure and set up a makeshift barricade, and we're holding them there now, but it's only a matter of time before they break through.
Ophelia was silent a moment as she looked at a dead super mutant on the floor, finding it interesting that the Brotherhood hadn't encountered them before now.
We have to do something now because they won't stop. They will tear Atlas apart with sheer numbers.
We need to get down there and reinforce that barricade. Knight Shin, I trust you can put your feelings aside and work with me on this?
Shin recoiled slightly, offended she thought so little of him, and annoyed he even had to say it.
Of course. The safety of our brethren comes first.
Good. Then let's go.
Hurry!
Rahmani led the way down into the substructure, followed by Shin, Valdez, and Ophelia, the steps of their power armor echoing off the cement walls as they went. Once down in the substructure, more bodies of mutants and Brotherhood alike littered the floor. Valdez turned after assessing the area.
Oh, good. Our initiate's held, and the barricade is still standing.
Rahmani gave a solemn look over the bodies of the dead, her frown deepening as she pushed down her own rising grief.
It looks like things have calmed down. Is this the last of the attackers?
Unlikely. Hostiles have been hitting in waves for hours now. Our scouts, the ones who've returned, they've been reporting the tunnels crawling with mutants.
Then we need a plan of attack. This threat won't take care of itself. We'll go on the offensive and take the fight to them.
We can barely hold a position of strength. Engaging superior numbers head-on would be suicide.
Ophelia looked between the two and saw that the tension from the transmitter was still fresh and threatening to overtake the situation. Quickly, she stepped in to keep their focus.
Shin is correct, but we can't just stand here twiddling our thumbs. The super mutants will not stop and Atlas will fall if we don't do something. We need a third option.
She looked to Valdez, hoping the brilliant scribe would provide that option. Though Valdez was detecting something was very off between Rahmani and Shin, she held her questions for now and focused on the task at hand.
I think there's a way we can make the plan a success. I have some explosive charges. I was waiting to plant them as a last line of defense, but maybe we can put them to better use. If we go into the tunnels, find their points of entry, we can destroy them and prevent any more mutants from attacking.
A surgical strike. I suppose that could work.
It has to work. We don't really have any other option.
Fine. But the Initiate will plant the bombs and I will control the detonator. Scribe Valdez will stay behind and command the barricade, in case we don't make it back.
Knight Shin gave in, seeing no other option, but his gaze rested on Rahmani firmly, the distrust obvious on his weathered and dirty face. Rahmani began, a hint of either disappointment, condescension, or both in her voice.
Very well, Shin. If that's the price of your cooperation, then I'll pay it. If only to hold our brotherhood together a little longer.
Valdez looked even more confused, irritation creeping into her voice as she looked between the knight and the paladin. She was getting the impression something dire had happened, and it only magnified the feeling everything was hanging on by a single thread.
A little longer? Never mind. That can wait. Here are the bombs. I'll stay here and do what I can for the wounded. Good luck. I believe in you. All of you.
Valdez handed Ophelia the bag of bombs and gave Shin the detonator, worry written all over her face. As the Paladin, Knight, and Ophelia turned to head deeper into the caves, the scribe tried to quell the sick feeling growing in her stomach. Ophelia once again activated her stealth suit and headed into the tunnel ahead, followed by the loud clunking of Rahmani and Shin in their power armor. Thankfully, they were slow enough she was able to get a good lead on them in order to scout ahead as they went. Not far into the tunnel, Ophelia could hear Rahmani and Shin behind her taking pot shots at each other, and she couldn't help rolling her eyes yet again as she continued forward, making sure the way was clear or to give her time to warn the distracted Paladin and Knight. However, listening in was an opportunity to glean some insight to who they were.
Fort Atlas is finished if we don't take this seriously. This is more than just another of your daring offensives.
We'll survive this one like we survive all the others.
Not if you keep taking success for granted.
You mistake confidence for complacency. Victory is won through willpower. We've chosen a path. Now we commit to it.
Ophelia's eyes remained ahead, and still so far so good. Though she skirted past the body of one of their scouts, she felt a pang of sorrow in her gut. Here she was judging the two behind her while ignoring the impact this was all having on herself, though that was something of a habit thanks to the ever-driving need to survive. Regardless, there was a critical task to accomplish, or else they were all dead. There was also the continuing gnawing in her mind. It was alarming that this Brotherhood chapter hadn't dealt with super mutants before. Still, she continued on, listening to them every step of the way.
Besides, isn't this what you always wanted, Shin? Ridding the wasteland of threats to humanity?
I'm not a violent thug, Rahmani. I didn't join the Brotherhood to kill.
Well, you're certainly no negotiator.
Some people can't be negotiated with. I don't know how you've come so far without realizing that.
Finally, Ophelia stopped and stood, turning her suit to visible, glaring at Rahmani and Shin as she tried to keep her voice low but firm, her own stare firm and annoyed.
Oh my god, will you both shut up? In case you haven't noticed, we're in trouble here. These super mutants are no joke and not something to take lightly. They will wear us down, and we will die if this fails. No ifs, no ands, and certainly no buts. You've had to rely on one another before, and you need to now. Stow it, or I will do this by myself.
You will do no such thing.
I can, and I will. Do not test me right now. I have had it with the both of you. Grow up, now.
Ophelia met Shin's silent glare and looked to Rahmani, who also wore an expression of displeasure at being spoken to with such a tone, until Ophelia could hear a beeping coming up behind her from further down the tunnel.
Shit, it's a suicider.
She spat in a muffled growl, turning her suit back on and crouching before hurriedly moving down the hall and taking aim. She could see the glow of the red blinking light of the proximity detonator, and she counted as she took aim.
1, 2, 3.
The bulbous green head came into view, and she opened fire, catching the mutant through the left eye, his head exploding almost instantly as the lifeless body fell to the floor. Quickly, she moved up and ducked behind a giant rock as bullets began to whiz by her from the miniguns that were behind the fallen.
It would help if we could see you, Initiate, unless you want to end up as Swiss cheese.
Shin bellowed as he and Rahmani took a position to respond to the super mutant with their own barrage of bullets. Ophelia backed off, slipping behind Shin and Rahmani to snipe off mutants they missed.
Behind you, Knight.
Rahmani's Gatling laser sprayed the tunnel ahead with vengeful hot beams that ripped through the small mutant wave that was making its way toward them, while Shin picked off those that survived with his laser rifle. Finally, the last mutant collapsed into its own blood, and they resumed moving through an opening into a larger cavern. Ophelia took this time to speak, trying to fight her own feelings of stress with this whole situation by trying to find a moment of levity. and the night was reliably ripe for the picking.
I have to say, Shin, I'm surprised that with the arsenal you maintain that you chose such a small gun. Why not a plasma minigun?
Shin reloaded to a fresh fusion cell, the metallic click sounding off the stone walls, his voice soft as not to send out an echo.
It is not the size that matters, but how you use it.
Really?
She asked.
Ophelia chuckled quietly before pushing on, staying low and visible for the time being.
Noted. It's good for a man to be happy with his size.
If you know how to use your equipment, then there is no reason to be insecure about its size.
Ophelia couldn't help herself, trying to suppress her laughter while Rahmani simply shook her head.
Oh my god.
What? Weapon neglect and lack of training is a hazard. You should know this, Rahmani.
Sometimes I wonder about you.
Did I miss something, Paladin?
You didn't miss a thing, you grouchy, pure-minded soul.
Shin's usual scowl returned once he realized that Ophelia was implying something else entirely different than his laser rifle, and that he was being teased. His glare now focused on her, who continued walking, quietly chuckling to herself.
This is not the time to be vulgar, Initiate.
As you wish, Dad.
Call me that again, and I will give you latrine duty for a month.
Rahmani decided to step in, noting some tension had been relieved among the group, though she suspected Ophelia's penchant for teasing could ruin that just as quickly.
All right, you two. Focus.
Yes, Paladin.
Ophelia agreed, as Shin simply remained silent. A few moments later, they came to a large, old mining cavern, and the Initiate held up a hand as a sign to hold position and proceed with caution before indicating she was moving off to the left as she activated her suit. Once she disappeared, Rahmani gestured for Shin to follow and that she would flank from the right. Shin gave a nod and raised his laser rifle and stepped as softly as he possibly could forward, looking for glimpses of green skin.
Ow! My ass! Who left my gun chair?
Suddenly, shots rang out as Shin and Rahmani opened fire on the location the voice came from. Ophelia found a spot high and out of the way and began sniping off the mutants blocking the tunnel on the other side and any others who were getting too close to the Knight and Paladin, who were cutting a path forward. At least when they had a clear and common enemy, they thankfully worked well together. Something to keep in mind for later.
Stop shooting, puny human! Let me kill you!
Firefight continued to echo on in the tunnels as Ophelia moved up a set of metal stairs. Being invisible had its perks, but even with super mutants, one had to be super careful, as they had a habit of shooting at anything that moved. The Vault Dweller took aim at a mutant hiding in the old makeshift office, but only managed to shoot at his feet. That proved to be a horrible idea as minigun fire began to spray the rock wall behind her, forcing her to dive off the stairs. Rahmani gave a yell as she opened fire on the minigunner in response as Shin rushed forward into the office, unloading his gun into a mutant.
Oh, my arm!
Let me help you with that.
Shin blasted the mutant in the face. Ophelia moved past Rahmani and around Shin, working her way across the catwalk quietly, pulling the pin of a grenade before chucking it to the other side of the cavern, ducking back into the office just in time for mutant parts to go flying.
They are really starting to piss me off.
She moved to the next catwalk, toward the continuing tunnel, Shin and Rahmani behind her. The tunnel was an old mining shaft with rails and carts along the left, signs of a long-forgotten mining operation.
So I think it's safe to say they didn't dig all of this themselves. There is no telling how far these tunnels run in how many directions.
Just follow the incoherent moaning and moronic grunts.
Or the smell. Do these things ever bathe?
I don't think so. Speaking of, I hope you two have strong stomachs.
Gore had a potent aroma the Vault Dweller knew well, though she also knew there was little preparing the Paladin and Knight for that horror. Coming to the first fork in the tunnel, she held up a hand for the others to stop while she listened carefully, taking a sniff of the air, before dry heaving and gesturing to the left as she moved again. After a few moments of slowly walking, Ophelia raised a hand for the others to stop, moving to scout ahead. With the flip of a switch, he disappeared, leaving Rahmani and Shin to avoid looking at each other. The Initiate made it to a much larger cavern with mining equipment and an elevator in the middle, and her blood ran cold. The place was crawling with mutants, and more seemed to appear from smaller tunnels in the walls.
That's where they're coming in from.
She turned back to report, only to hear Shin and Rahmani again. Ophelia simply rolled her eyes.
This disaster is unacceptable. We need more personnel at Fort Atlas.
You always protest when I try to recruit more members. Now you're saying we don't have enough. Make up your mind, Shin.
Like those Putnam boys the Initiate recruited, without any authority to do so?
The Initiate saw an opportunity and took it. In exchange, we got 2 new trainees. Marty Putnam is eager and fearless, an ideal combination for a future knight. We're lucky to have him. And Colin Putnam has a rare intellect. He could be a scribe someday. I'd have recruited him myself had I been there.
Ophelia quietly moved closer, not letting either of them know she was there as she sat behind a mining cart eavesdropping. She needed them to focus, so she was going to give them a moment to hopefully get this out of their system.
She did show strong initiative when confronting the raider threat and followed our principles. I will concede her judgment isn't that abhorrent.
And without needless bloodshed, might I add. She was also able to get more information about where the weapons came from and where they have unfortunately spread. It is possible she may also be able to open dialogue with Crater, so that perhaps we can get them to work with everyone rather than against them. If I didn't think she actually enjoys pressing your buttons, I would suggest you stop trying to run her off, especially if you want competent recruits, Knight.
I am not trying to run her off. If she, or any Initiate for that matter, can't handle me, then what hope do they have against what the Wasteland has to offer? Against these mutant creatures? I know you don't see it, but there is a method to what I do, Rahmani.
There is such a thing as too much, Shin.
Turning her stealth suit off, Ophelia stood and leaned against the minecart, her expression bored and amused as she looked at the two.
I leave you alone for 3 minutes.
Shin was about to retort, but shut his mouth and went back to his usual scowl. Rahmani ignored the disapproving look from the Vault Dweller and instead pushed past it.
What is there to report, Initiate?
There's a much larger cavern up ahead, which looks to be the main hub of this mine. There's an elevator in the center and many more tunnels. All have mutants spilling out, and the place is crawling with them.
Of course it is. We do have one advantage, however. With your stealth suit, you can slip past them. Rahmani and I can draw their fire to this tunnel while you go plant the charges. We can chokehold them here and pull them away from the other tunnels.
We can also use these mine carts to our advantage as obstacles. How effective is that cloak, Initiate?
Don't worry about me. I can slip around them easily enough and plant the charges. Just avoid shooting the perimeter of the cavern. I will travel along the wall starting from the left. It looks like it loops back around to this tunnel, so just hold them off until you hear my signal, once I get clear of the charges.
What's the signal?
Probably something along the lines of, blow your load, assuming you can hear me.
I don't even know why I ask.
I'll move to the front and wait for you to set up a defense. Then give me a signal when you're ready.
Ophelia activated her stealth suit once more and headed toward the entrance of the tunnel while Shin and Rahmani worked to gently tip a minecart over on its side and shimmy it into place for a blockade. There was one already tipped over that had large rocks in it, and Rahmani gave the knight a nod. Shin picked up a small rock and looked for the subtle shimmer of Ophelia's suit before chucking it at her, hitting her in the back. Ophelia held back her surprised scream as she turned to see Shin grinning wickedly in her direction, holding a metal thumbs up. The Initiate gave a low groan before throwing a rock back at him. It bounced off his power armor shoulder plating, signaling she was moving off slowly down the stairs to the left, avoiding rocks and mutants while trying not to gag from their stench. Once she was sure the Initiate was out of the way, Rahmani signaled for Shin to get behind the new barricade as she walked to the edge of the tunnel and opened fire, spraying the cavern while being sure to avoid the left edge as instructed. Once they began firing back, she ducked and turned, jogging with a loud clunk back to her barricade.
Hey, rude! Oh, look! Dinner wants to play first! Get 'em!
Well, they're pissed off now.
Wasn't that the point? Get behind cover and prepare to fire.
After a moment, they could hear the mutant cacophony of groans and garbled speech getting closer, preceded by a rhythmic beeping. That was when a naked super mutant holding something that looked like a flashing red football came into view as Shin took a shot, missing its head and catching it in the arm, only for the tunnel to be filled with a hot, bright light.
Boom! I'm gonna kaboom! I'm gonna kaboom!
The Geiger counter spiking as a small atom cloud rose from the spot the mutant once stood.
They have mini nukes?
It would appear so.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Once the cloud cleared, mutants from the left and right began running toward the entrance as the Brotherhood officers began to fire. Rahmani's Gatling laser cutting through limbs as Shin hit dead center, peppering their ugly faces with laser blasts.
Come out, little meal. I might give you a quick death. I cut dibs on the left leg. Yeah. No, both legs. I'm real hungry. I've been working up a mean appetite.
Their shots rang out in the large cavern as Ophelia quietly made her way around the perimeter down below, up to another tunnel where she planted the first bomb before moving on to the hole 20 feet away. It was behind metal grating that looked like it had been torn through, and before she could get close enough to plant the explosive, a mutant crawled through and she stumbled back. Grabbing her suppressed Crusader pistol, she fired several bullets into its face until it fell to the floor. That was when she heard an alerted grunt from behind her, and a mutant had started walking over to investigate the now fresh body on the floor.
Who's that? I will smash!
Ophelia, crouched, quietly moved past the hole. She would have to arm this one later. So she traveled further along the perimeter to the next hole, avoiding another mutant as it crawled out and ran off to join its buddies trying to kill the Knight and Paladin. She planted the charge, and despite not wanting to give away her position, she saw an opening to pick off the mutant that had just passed with a few well-placed shots to the back of its neck, before quickly and quietly moving on.
At what point do we check to see if she's dead?
Would it really kill you to have more faith in other people, Shin? She'll get it.
It was mutant after mutant until suddenly the wave stopped. The mutants had gotten wise to their plan and chucked a grenade into the tunnel.
Grenade!
Now what? We can't retreat, and now the Initiate is a sitting duck.
We go on the offensive.
Rahmani spoke as if he should know better while taking the time to reload. The Knight gave a nod, reloading his rifle before turning and clomping back down the tunnel to the entrance just in time to see another grenade flying toward him. With a skillfully timed swing of his rifle, he batted the grenade back out into the cavern before it was able to explode. Rahmani followed, laying down another spread, each taking a side of the cavern to fire upon. They stayed on the ridge of their entrance tunnel back to back, taking the seemingly never-ending wave of mutants with fierce determination together. Ophelia glanced over to see Rahmani and Shin emerge from the tunnel, working together for once to combat the mutants quickly moving in on their position. She cleared a path to the third tunnel where one of those giant mutant hounds was standing and sniffing the air. She cringed, wondering just where they got the beast. Just like where all mutants come from. The super mutants mate? That was a mystery on her long, long list of things to solve, and now really wasn't the time. Ophelia raised her pistol and lined up her sights with the massive green Cujo and pulled the trigger before sneaking up to the hole, peeking in before setting the second charge. As she moved further along the wall to the fourth hole, she could hear Shin and Rahmani in the distance.
This battle only ends one way.
Taking heavy fire here.
As expected.
I'm hit!
Adjust your stance and lean on me, but don't stop firing.
Ophelia sped up, trying to get to the last hole faster before one of those bullets went through their helmetless heads. A mutant popped out as she took aim and shot it through the eye before quickly setting the third charge. Once that was set, she looked over to check on Rahmani and Shin, who were still firing into mutant after mutant. Rahmani down on one knee, tucked in near Shin, who was trying to provide some amount of cover for her.
I'm hit!
They aren't letting up. We have no choice but to continue, Shin.
Mutants had continued to crawl out of the holes, and thankfully not a single one saw the explosive charges she had set. But she was still missing one. The second tunnel she had to move past, and now she needed to somehow traverse the open field of angry super mutants in order to get back to. Ophelia held her breath as she gently and carefully began weaving in and out of the mutants, making their way towards the others. Once to the second hole, she buried a boot knife into the eye of a mutant that popped its head out as she was setting the last explosive, blood spraying her in the face as the mutant slumped over.
Oh, damn it. I feel blood trickling down my leg.
We have to press on. Don't fail me now, Paladin. Taking a knee.
For the Brotherhood. Initiate, hurry up.
Ad Victoriam.
Rahmani howled as another shot made a lucky pass through the weaker part of her armor. Shin crashed against rock as his leg buckled, but they both kept firing. Ophelia turned and scanned the massive cavern. The charges were set, and she needed to get clear of any potential debris. That's when her eyes fell to the service elevator in the center of the room, and she stood. Grabbing the machete off her back, she filled her lungs with air and screamed.
Get to the elevator!
As she broke into a run, Ophelia sliced at green flesh as she went, carving a bloody path to the elevator. Shin groaned as he forced himself up, turning to pull Rahmani to her feet as well, before both leapt off the edge, landing with an echoing thud on the rock below. The Initiate, being more agile of the three, made it to the elevator and slung her rifle around and began shooting to give them covering fire as they piled into the center elevator. Shin grabbed the detonator and pressed the button. He and Rahmani bracing themselves over Ophelia as several concussive blasts fired off. Rock and rubble flying in every direction, hitting the metal casing of the elevator as mutants howled in pain. Some were literally torn apart by the blasts, sending blood, guts, and limbs flying everywhere. The deafening sound continued as the explosion set off a chain reaction of cave-ins further into tunnels. After a moment, things began to fall silent as small rocks rolled to a stop, the sound of dust raining down. No one dared move until they felt it was safe. The only sound was their breathing as they waited for the damage to pass. Finally, Rahmani lifted her head to take a look.
Did the cave-in get them all?
By the sounds of it.
Ophelia had turned her head and realized she had been caged between the two of them, which wasn't helping the growing feeling of claustrophobia.
You guys can get off me now. Careful not to step on my feet, please.
Metal shuffled as Rahmani stood and backed away carefully, while a sick whirring noise came from Shin's right leg as he tried to straighten, only to lock up with a metal clunk.
I'm stuck.
Hold that thought. Let's get this elevator moving, then I'll take a look at it.
Does this elevator go to the surface?
With Rahmani moved, Ophelia was able to slip out from under Shin and move to smack the call button with her fist, giving the Paladin a shrug.
We're about to find out.
What if this lets out into another cavern crawling with mutants?
As opposed to dying down here? If it makes you feel any better, all of those super mutants were coming through the tunnels, not the elevator. If there are any, there will likely be few.
Shin growled again, looking at his frozen leg. Liquid oozing from under the right thigh plating.
I'm a sitting duck if I can't move. I'm no use to either of you like this.
Ophelia stepped over and knelt down to inspect the damage, plucking a stray mutant eyeball from the knight's hair. As the elevator clanked on its way up, the Initiate scanned the chassis carefully.
Well, good news is I don't see any blood, and it looks like the bullet just grazed one of the hydraulic lines.
Can you fix it?
Do you believe in God?
What does that have to do with anything?
Well, if you believed in a god, you might believe he looks over you, performs miracles, that kind of thing. Aha! Maybe there is one after all.
Ophelia answered, smiling at the knight as she spotted a roll of duct tape sitting on a small toolbox in the corner of the elevator. Grabbing the tape, she shuffled back over to Shin as the elevator came to a stop in yet another tunnel.
Keep an eye out while I patch this up.
Rahmani stepped in front of Ophelia, blocking her from any possible gunfire as the Vault Dweller got to work, wrapping the hydraulic tube as carefully and tightly as her thin fingers would allow. After a moment, when she felt she had wrapped it enough, she stood and backed up.
Try moving your leg. You may need to pump it to get the fluid to flow through it again.
Shin grunted as he pushed and pulled against the power armor shocks, slowly working the fluid back through the line, only to be met with more resistance.
Gah! Feels like I'm getting stuck on something.
Ophelia knelt down and turned on her Pip-Boy light to get a closer look, squinting and craning her neck to peek under the metal plating.
Well, this sucks. It also split a connector rod.
Damn it! I'd say we can leave it and come back for it, but I have no other armor on me should we encounter more mutants.
Let me see what I can find.
Ophelia said as she wandered off down the tunnel, leaving Shin and Rahmani to deal with each other in silence.
Find? To what?
I assume to find something to fix your power armor.
In an old mine shaft? Lunacy. If we can get back to Fort Atlas, we can come back and collect the suit and fix it then with proper equipment.
There's no telling how far we are from Atlas. We may have to do that, but we aren't leaving her down here. Let her at least scout the tunnel ahead and stop being so ungrateful. Your rudeness is getting tiring, Knight.
I wasn't suggesting leaving her down here, and I'm not ungrateful.
Sure sounds like it. I understand that you're frustrated, but you can't take it out on everyone all the time, Shin.
Shin stared at the Paladin for a long, silent moment as he forced himself to reflect. He could feel the adrenaline flowing through his veins and his muscles were saturated from the stress of the day. First, there was Paladin Rahmani's attempt at sabotaging their mission and treason, then the attack on Fort Atlas.
You're correct. I should be directing my frustration at you. You who want to betray everything we have worked for so you can what? Use the Brotherhood name to meet your own ends?
The Elders are holding the Brotherhood back, Shin. I want to take the Brotherhood name and do good for the people of Appalachia and the world.
You want us cut off from home. Ophelia was correct when she said that you had no right to make that call on your own. And you knew you didn't. Which is why you never mentioned your plans to anyone. You knew what you were planning was wrong. Say what you will about me and my attitude, but I would never have been so heartless to make such a call. No matter my feelings about the Elders. The Elders which you also misunderstood.
Rahmani held her tongue a moment, seeing a pain in his eyes she knew she had wanted to avoid, but she shook her head and tried to reason with him.
You don't see them the way I do because you are too deeply indoctrinated by them. Paranoia is making them grow cold and bitter. I'm telling you, they're losing sight of what they started the Brotherhood for, Shin. I just don't know how to make you see it.
You still could have talked to me, Rahmani. Instead, you have piled workload after workload on me and belittled my input at every turn. I see now you've been trying to keep me distracted from what you've actually been planning. I have always followed your orders to a T and made sure the Initiates did the same. I have had your back even though I didn't agree with your methods, but it is clear you have never had mine.
Shin's dark eyes were intense and focused on her while locked in his immovable metal suit. Pain, anger, and exhaustion saturated his weathered face. Rahmani stood silent a long moment as she stared at the night, also feeling her own exhaustion and myriad of emotions.
I hear you, Shin. I do. But you need to hear me too. I will say, it is probably best for this conversation to wait until we've had time to rest. We're both exhausted from this trek back to Atlas and the fight with the mutants. Neither of us are going to proceed with logical and level minds. Agreed?
Agreed. This can wait until after we get more of a handle on this threat. But do not think I will let you weasel out of it when the moment actually comes.
I wouldn't dream of it, Shin. I will meet this task when it is time. I promise you.
Your promises currently stand on thin ice.
Rahmani knew there was nothing she could say at this moment. Once he dug his heels in, there was no moving him without taking him out. It made him formidable in battle, but it made dealing with him as an ally difficult. So they stood in silence for a while longer before Ophelia came walking back, carrying what looked like a makeshift battery, some wires, and tools. Once close enough, she looked at Rahmani and Shin and gave a smile.
You didn't kill each other. Good. I'm actually proud of you two.
Very funny, Initiate.
Shin said nothing and simply stayed still, as if he was able to do anything else. He hated being stuck like this. He hated relying upon the Initiate to help him, but he had no choice. He looked down and watched as Ophelia set the battery on the ground and began hooking up wires to it, and then taping the other ends to a long screwdriver with 2 copper nails at the tip.
What are you doing?
Making a little welder, hopefully, if I don't electrocute myself. Ow.
Ophelia gave another yelp and a hiss as her fingers met with a live current. One last hiss, she pulled her sunglasses out of a pocket on her utility belt and put them on before opening the live current to the screwdriver as the end sparked to life.
Eureka! Okay, hold still.
Picking up her wrench, she began prying the chunk of metal that had jutted inward and was getting caught in the metal joint, before bending it back into place and crudely welding it. Several moments passed as she worked before finally she disconnected the battery and stood before stepping back.
Try to move now.
Shin pushed up and down to circulate the hydraulic fluid once more before finally being able to stand straight, breathing a sigh of relief.
It worked. Well done, Initiate. My lower back was getting stiff.
I also scouted ahead and saw the first large cavern we encountered is just down this tunnel, so Atlas isn't that far. There's a small cliff, but I'm sure we can help you down. I don't advise jumping. The weld is simply a band-aid.
Lead the way then.
Ingenious, Initiate. They seem to have taught you everything in that vault.
They tried. I made a point to learn how to weld and a number of other trades. My stepdad and ticket into the vault stressed that trade skills would be the most important in a survival situation. He sort of guided my education.
Your ticket into the vault?
After my sperm donor hit it and quit it, my mother did what she had to in order to survive. She met some military strategist that she shacked up with. He had a spot in the vault, along with a spot for a wife and kid. They married shortly before the bombs fell, and we were loaded up into 76, the doors closing soon after.
How old were you, if you don't mind me asking?
5. I remember thinking it was a giant playground when Malcolm took me to look at the vault. At least until after the bombs finally dropped. In hindsight, my mother planned well. I didn't understand anything about the war or what was coming.
The mournful tone in Ophelia's voice was unmistakable as she offered her superiors a glimpse into her own past, until they finally made it to the large cavern with supermutant corpses still littered the ground from their trek through earlier.
Naturally. You were just a kid. I imagine your mother would want to shield you from that.
Yeah, she kept a lot of things from me. Her way, I suppose. It's irrelevant anyway.
The Initiate hopped down to look for an easy way for the knight to maneuver, obviously wanting to avoid the topic of her mother, at least for now. The Initiate tested some rock off the small cliff face and examined the ground thoroughly before stepping back.
If you come from the right side of the ledge, there's a fairly flat spot to land on. I'd suggest trying to hop down on your one good leg. Unless you want to crawl down.
Shin and Rahmani let the discussion of Ophelia's history fade into the background as they walked to the ledge the Initiate was pointing at and looked down.
Oh, I can probably help lower you down if you tossed your rifle to the Initiate. Do you trust me enough for that, Shin?
Don't tempt me to say no, Rahmani.
Shin growled as he tossed his rifle to Ophelia before turning to face the Paladin. Carefully they locked hands and Shin carefully stepped back, the whirring of servos in their power armor straining as Rahmani lowered Shin down the small cliff until his feet touched her.
You can let go now.
Making sure he landed on his good leg first as Rahmani released her grip. Shin landed with a thud before tentatively making sure he could still walk, and Rahmani hopped off the ledge before continuing on with ease. The knight wasn't going to actually accuse her. He was sure she was trying to rub it in his face.
We're almost there. We can get your armor properly fixed and get much needed rest before cleaning up and getting our bearings. We need to gather as much intel on these mutants as possible and collapse these tunnels so they can't use them again.
Shortly, the three emerged from the hole in the substructure wall to cheers as everyone assumed it was mission success. Rahmani and Shin nodded to the other initiates as they passed as Ophelia let them get ahead of her as she looked to a worried Valdez as the scribe tried to keep a brave face.
I will write up shifts of guard duty and repairs until we can ensure the substructure is fortified. Be sure to check the roster in the morning.
Shin barked at everyone before heading to get out of his power armor, Rahmani close behind. Valdez looked to Ophelia, asking her next burning question.
What happened?
We will discuss that upstairs, Scribe Valdez, after the knight and I have had time to peel ourselves out of these suits.
Rahmani interjected as she headed up the stairs. Ophelia simply shrugged and followed, honestly just wanting a moment to breathe. Sometime later, Ophelia heard her name being bellowed into the great hall by Shin as she had found a mattress to lay on to rest her eyes. She had almost fallen asleep when those efforts were rudely interrupted, and she got to her feet with a groan and headed to join the others. Once she had stepped up to the small group, Rahmani got straight to it.
The mission was a success, and Fort Atlas is safe. Our decisive action drove the enemy from our home, as it has in the past and will in the future.
We survived the attack, but now you need to answer for what you tried to do at the transmitter.
Okay, what happened? You have been at each other's throats since you returned. Should have known something was wrong.
Valdez stepped in, a sorrowful and worried tone creeping into her voice. Her gaze was fixed on Ophelia, though, rather than the Paladin or Knight. Ophelia let her calm gaze rest on the Paladin.
Rahmani tried to destroy the transmitter. I put a stop to that action, however. Had it not been for your distress call, I'm unsure if she would have ran me through anyway.
Run you through? The transmitter?
I was going to destroy the transmitter before the Initiate stepped in front of me. A rather dangerous action, though. I was not going to run through you, Initiate. The Elders are blind to the good we can do, and we need to break free of their influence.
You only want to escape responsibility for that incident. You can't bear to face the judgment of the Elders.
The Elders would have us stand trial for crimes we didn't commit. Your own sense of guilt is blinding you to that.
It's clear that you can't be reasoned with. I don't know why I even bother trying. It's undeniable that these new mutants are a threat that demands our unity. For now. But you have to answer for your actions.
Do what you will, Shin. Cool your head and come back when you're ready to cooperate.
Shin turned to storm off as he headed back down the stairs before Rahmani replied, as she broke off and headed into what she had for an office, leaving Valdez and Ophelia alone.
I don't know what to say. Paladin Rahmani has always butted heads with the Elders, but cutting ourselves off entirely? And I have never seen Knight Shin behave that way towards a superior officer. His rage has taken complete control of his senses.
I can see both of their point of view, but it's unfortunate that they can't see each other's. Well, can't or won't. All I knew was that if she destroyed the transmitter, this was going to be far worse than it is now.
They have always had beliefs so strong that they would die for them. It's those passions that drive them forward. But it tends to leave no room for compromise. And it's clear this rift won't heal easily when there is so much animosity between them right now. But that said, I still believe they can come together in the end. And I plan to do everything I can to make that happen.
You really believe they can make it through this?
Of course I do.
I have to ask, though. If you had to choose one to back, which one would it be?
I couldn't possibly pick between them, Initiate. We have all been through so much together. Rahmani is a good leader, even if she seems to have lost her mind for a moment. And as for Shin, I know he's rough around the edges and hard to deal with at times, but it's because he wants to do what is right. The one thing they both share is a desire to make a better world for everyone.
From what I've observed so far, where one is weak, the other's strengths tend to compensate. They leaned on one another when they needed to, and had each other's backs, even in anger. Fort Atlas needs them both. We just need to get past their stubborn pride and get them to see eye to eye. Get them to want to see eye to eye.
We? You mean you want to help?
Yeah. I think the Brotherhood can be a force for good in Appalachia. I'd like to be part of that, and I want to see this chapter succeed where Taggarty and her crew didn't. It's clear that your team here has arrived in Appalachia a little broken and worse for wear, but with enough elbow grease and know-how, you can repair any chain without sacrificing bent links.
Then we will make it a team effort. I will assist in any way I can.
Valdez smiled softly, a sense of relief washing over her, and Ophelia returned her smile, tired but confident she could help sort this mess out. At least she was certainly going to do her best. Suddenly she raised a brow as she remembered something, someone who could be a key in reforging this link, and asking Valdez about him seemed the safest option at the moment.
I understand you lost one of your own on your way here, when you lost the missile launchers to the raiders. Knight Connors. Tell me about him.
As they began walking across the metal catwalk to Valdez's workshop, the scribe searched her memories, a bittersweet expression spreading across her face.
Knight Connors. Well, He was a good man and seemed to have a knack for mediating between Shin and Rahmani. He was Knight Shin's mentor, and I imagine a father figure of sorts after he lost his family. Shin would have followed him into hell. I know Connors and Rahmani were good friends before the war. There was a lot of respect and history there. And I even wondered if there was something more there a time or two.
Really? I would have guessed women were more her flavor.
I suppose it's possible, but I don't really dwell on such things. None of my business.
Fair enough. So, mentor, father figure, loyal friend. Losing him has obviously caused a lot of pain. Pain that our paladin and knight obviously haven't fully processed or dealt with.
For sure. When Connors was killed, it left a hole in all of us, even if I didn't know him as well. Rahmani seemed to move past it with a strange ease, while Shin tried to do the same, but it hasn't been easy for him.
Valdez spoke as she picked up her rag and began wiping off some tools, if for no other reason than to look busy. Ophelia glanced past the nearby railing and through the armory door down below, where she could see Shin's orange and cream-colored legs passing every so often as he dragged tools over to mend his power armor.
He dives right into work. Though my first impressions of him have been that he is a very intensely temperamental man, though he tries to maintain constant stoicism. I'm a little surprised there aren't more fist-shaped holes in the wall.
He is absolutely intense and has a temper, no doubt, but I would say it's because he's passionate, not temperamental. He also isn't violent, unless there's a reason to be. I know he gets frustrated because he wants to make the world a better place, but then we're met with raiders and now mutants who are doing their damnedest to stop that effort every step of the way. I get frustrated too.
The Vault Dweller looked back to Scribe Valdez, analyzing the woman to see if this was a young kind of naivete, but it was clear that Valdez was the calmer head of the three and had the warmest heart. A soft, appreciative smile spread Ophelia's lips, glad to have the scribe as an ally.
You really see the best in everyone, don't you? It seems to be a rare thing for him, but he's lucky to have a friend like you guarding his back.
I don't think he considers me a friend, but I care for them both.
I hope they feel the same about you.
That would be nice, wouldn't it? What about you? You've seen them at their worst now. I know you're still new, but curious as to your impressions. From what you've said here, you've been keeping a keen eye on them both.
To be honest, I've only seen half of each, if that. Rahmani is guarded, as any leader should be, but she's driven and ambitious. I have no doubt of her compassion, but she campaigns too much for my liking. Especially today. I felt like she was running for president more than trying to reason with me. I also don't appreciate the condescending tone she takes with a subordinate she relies so heavily on, even if he deserves it. As a leader, she should know better. It's a bit childish. Still, I'm chalking that up to her fighting to regain her own footing while dealing with her own trauma and guilt. I'll also add that she can't buy forgiveness for her mistakes. The wasteland doesn't care.
Ophelia's gaze drifted over to Rahmani, who seemed to be on her way down to the kitchen with her coffee cup. Shortly after the paladin descended the stairs into the armory, there was a metal clank followed by a loud, pained growl, as Knight Shin seemed to be having difficulties with his repairs.
Son of a... Gah.
Initiate then came scrambling out and beeline for the infirmary to get a first aid kit.
As for Shin, I noticed his frustration day one. He is so tightly wound, I've been waiting for the rubber band to snap. One foot in front of the other, organizing and delegating tasks, shifting to and fro while doing his best to adapt every time something drops in his lap. He is particular, dare I say, to an OCD level. It doesn't seem like Rahmani has any respect for him, though, and leaves him to struggle with it. As a result, everyone around him pays the price. I'm sure the only reason he sent Rahmani my recommendation was because I brought up the scorched inoculation and offered to help take some things off of his plate.
He seems to tolerate you more than most people, which is a little surprising.
Tolerates. Keyword there. I knew a crotchety old man like him once. Charles. I was so scared of him until my stepdad told me that his bark was far worse than his bite, and that people like that usually are so angry because they cared too much. So I sucked it up and went to ask the man to play chess with me one day, and believe it or not, after some resistance, we had daily games after school. Sadly, Charles didn't survive long after Reclamation Day. But I learned that people like that are ornery because of pain and anger, not because of hate. I wasn't too sure about Shin at first, but he doesn't shoot me in the face when I tease him, so that's a good sign.
Still, Shin doesn't tolerate anyone for no reason. Take that as you will. It's unfortunate that your friend passed, though. Imagine he'd be proud to see how far you've gotten.
Perhaps. Like Shin, I put one foot in front of the other. Speaking of, after we finish cleaning up, my feet should lead me to a bed where I can pass out. I am so exhausted and hungry. So much to do.
You are telling me. We've been through a lot, and I have a lot to think about. Try not to burn yourself out, Initiate. Ad Victoriam.
Scribe Valdez sent Ophelia off with a soft smile. As the Vault Dweller wandered off and started helping drag mutant bodies out of Fort Atlas to be burned and to bury the Brotherhood's dead. For now, some of the fort's wounds were beginning to scab over as those who remained continued on with the business of things. Out in the wasteland, everyone knew there was no other option, especially for those who stood up to the dangers that loomed around every rock, tree, and dilapidated building. War. War never changes.